curtain is closed.
Oh, the curtain is closed.
Okay.
It's just too bright.
Alright, I think that's okay. I think our class looks okay now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to give a very brief introduction about you first, Fabian, and then it will go to your turn. And this is, I think from this, okay, you can see this is Fabian Dawson. He is a very good friend of me. Okay, he is in Canada on the other side of Pacific. Okay, he works and lives in Vancouver. In a big newspaper in Canada. In fact, he also advises in many other news media around the world. I think I started to work with Fabian more than a decade ago when I was still in Niche magazine. He advised us on many issues, especially on the cross-border crime and corruption issues. I think I started to know Fabian when I went to Vancouver to cover the retired corrupt police officers, okay, who have a lot of properties and money settled in Vancouver in those days. At the same time, Fabian also helped Niche magazines to expose about the intelligence report prepared by Canada's authorities about the Chinese penetration in the country in all aspects, including politics and also in business circles. Okay, of course, maybe a few years ago, when I think that you guys will be aware of the big case of the Chinese smugglers, Lai Changxin, okay, who fled from China to Canada, and this is also Fabian also helped us on doing good interviews with Lai, okay, when he was out of the prison and being monitored at home, okay. So that is, I think this is only part of the big work that Fabian had done for us and also for these newspapers as well. Fabian won a number of the prizes on his investigative reporting, particularly strong in the corruption and also crime issues across the border. He has very good connections in Canada and also in the United States as well as in the Southeast Asia as well. Okay. So I asked Fabian to talk to us, okay, today in order to share his experience in doing cross-border stories. And I will particularly ask him to give some highlights on the way how he do the story, okay, how to make use of the public records, and how to develop good connections with human sources, including those private investigators that we have already come across, we have taught so much in the class. So I think it's now time for Fabian. You can share and talk further to our class. They are all professional journalists.
Thank you guys, thank you for having me. And thank you, Patricia. Well, as Patricia said, I live in Vancouver. And so as we go along, we look at the cross-border issues in Canada. And in Canada, as you know, right now, most of the people live close to the border with the United States. It's a fortnight parallel. Every story that happens here has a reverberation across the other side of the border, and anything that happens there has it here. But in terms of cross-border kind of stories, when we look at them, I think every newspaper basically has to, what we say, look globally and then act locally. So in our case in Vancouver, which is a huge population of immigrants, I mean in places like Richmond, Mandarin and Cantonese are more spoken than English, and then it's in areas like Surrey and Delta, which are suburbs of Vancouver, Punjabi and Hindi are more spoken than English. So we have different large groups and large ethnic communities within Vancouver. For us as a newspaper, to serve this community, we have to look outside for stories and then bring it home. So generally, if you ask me how I start my day in work, and currently I'm the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Vancouver Province newspaper in Vancouver, which is the largest daily here. You start by looking and scouring for stories internationally. So I have my library, which will check all the major US papers during the day to find out if there are stories of relevance to British Columbia or Canada. Similarly, I check, the major newspapers in Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and we look for stories in that way because, any story, if a guy is arrested, if a Canadian is arrested in Hong Kong, there is a connection here. If the government announces a tax shift in Hong Kong, there are implications here. So for us, our readership is huge in the ethnic communities and in the immigration community, new Canadian communities. So it's very vital for us to keep in touch globally so that we can do our reaction locally. And as far as the Americans are concerned, there are a lot of stories that just share the border, especially when you're close. And many a time, if you're looking at crime or just purely if you look at the crime scene, any of the crime, any of the organized crime activities that happen in the United States have a repercussion in Canada and vice versa. So how do you generate story ideas in a cross-border issue? From my perspective, as I said, we start the day that way. We look for trends sometimes, or we look for incidents. Patricia raised the issue of the Chinese or the Hong Kong cops. And that story just, again, came up again just a couple of weeks ago when we found out that he had died and he had come back here to get buried, one of the guys. And so those stories have got vast interest within the diaspora community here, the Chinese community here, which has moved here but has connections over there. When Hong Kong, and I'll keep relating to Hong Kong because you guys are there and I'm over here, but when you had the crazy movement that was going on over the last couple of weeks,